everybody. This is Alicia, Liz, and Ant with Servant Decoded, and we are super excited because we're back for season 3. It's up on Apple TV, and hopefully you've watched it. We're going to do a recap and review and go into more depth on the episode in the next few days, but today we just wanted to kind of hop on and say hi and maybe talk briefly about some of the big questions or things that might be in people's minds about what they want answered or things they're hoping to have revealed as we go through the season. Let's start talking with Leanne, right? We ended season 2 talking about Leanne and what was going on with her and her powers. So I think we've got some questions about that. What do you guys want to see or learn about Leanne and sort of where she's at now and where things are heading for her?
There's been debate as to whether or not there's a supernatural element at work. Are Leanne's powers real? Does she have power? I think that's been answered, but I know there's been some debate. So I'd like to see that this season. Some definitive answers. Does she have powers? What are they? And to what extent can she use them? Or might she need to use them?
Yeah, definitely. I agree. What do you think, Anne, about like the supernatural element of this? And what were some of the things, I guess, last season that you felt really were confirming of that? Or did you feel like it confirmed that?
Whatever she was doing before, it seems like she's getting away from it because she's not as connected to the cult currently. But it also still seems like she has more power in a different way.
Right.
Like the further she gets away from the more she has it like on a personal level. And it seems to be further reaching.
Yes.
Within the first episode of the new season.
Right.
Like she doesn't have control over it, but she has more of it, it seems like.
At the end of season 2 finale, they're coming for me, but I'll be ready. Or, I know you're coming, but I'll be ready when you do.
She seems like unfamiliar with like what she's actually doing. If you watch the first episode of the new season, I mean.
A little less confident.
A little less confident, and a little less like sure of what's actually happening.
Confused about why certain things are still accessible to her and certain things aren't.
Or like maybe what's accessible specifically. Or like how to start to try to focus it if need be, or if it's just going to be random events that pertain to things that are upsetting or situation altering.
Can she harness that, or is it and come from her emotion? Yeah, definitely. Which I think that also leads us into our next question nicely, which is about the cult, right? And you mentioned Liz saying that she said that she knew they would be coming and she would be ready. So I think that's another big question that we have, right? Is who's coming? And what is she going to be ready for? And how does she plan to be ready for it?
There you go. And are they coming for Liam? Are they coming for the baby? Are they coming for the family?
Yeah. What does that mean? What threat do they pose? Yeah. And is it localized to this family, or is it a bigger, more further reaching threat?
Right.
I know there's a lot of talk about the war that is coming, and we've discussed different possibilities on what that could be. But ultimately, I think that metaphorically, it's the war between light and dark.
Of course. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. I feel like just having listened to some of what M. Night Shyamalan has said about the show, that he is wanting us to explore those themes as the big existential themes of, dark and light, good and evil and all of that, but through the lens of this one particular family's story. So a lot of times last season, I kept feeling like we were heading to something big But now I wonder if it's really more localized, and that some of these things that were sort of foreshadowing in maybe more ominous ways are really just meant to go, hey, this is how we want you to be feeling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it could be like large on a small scale, because like things like in your life immediate are a lot more easy to like relate to than the world at large. So showing it like this way, like doing something so vulnerable as a baby and someone who's like just starting life, you know, as a young woman or, you know, late teen, trying to help with like, and also people going through like addiction and the struggle of a marriage and having lost all of the, it's a lot to cover those themes with.
Yeah, no, but Anne, you're absolutely right. I think it's all of those things. Yeah.
Telling the story through this family, this house in this one location. As we saw at the end of season 2, I think the final shot, the lights go out, and then we see the lights going out down the street or down the block, you know, one by one. Maybe a little hint at, you know, this house is a microcosm for what's occurring. It'll have, it'll mean more, but we're seeing it just within this family.
Like bigger implications of the smaller, you know.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
For a minute.
I completely agree. It does make me think of Lost a little bit, right?
Yes.
I know that there was a lot of heated debate over the Lost finale, but which I know we really liked. At least, you know, we've talked about that amongst ourselves. But that I think that's also what they were doing in it, or trying to do in a sense. And maybe they didn't do that perfectly all the time. But you know, when we learned about in Lost, when you learn about what the island is, you know, it's real, but it's also metaphorically representing all of our responsibility to, you know, for good to try and
like not everything matters. Like, you know, again, like the opposite, like all of the little things you think are important are to you, but like for the whole of it, it's just, you know, something that is.
But if each of us is always choosing the dark side and not the light side, then that's when it begins to take over the society, world, universe, right? I think that's the implication, is that we have to make sure that we keep that balance, so that we continue,
or at least be aware of it. Yeah.
Right.
One small act does not define you. You know, that we're not defined by one bad action or one good action. It's
or the things that happen.
But we were talking a little bit about, you know, Jericho and what having the baby back now means for this family or for the season, and also for Dorothy. You know, in the trailer, we see briefly the doll, and Dorothy's holding it carelessly, as we've become accustomed to seeing various family members do. But she has this look on her face, right, that kind of makes it feel like she's, I don't know, wondering why the doll's there, or is she angry, confused? So yeah, what do you guys feel like? What answers do you want, or what do you think we might explore in terms of the doll and its return? What might that be alluding to, or what might its importance be?
Yeah. Will Jericho remain, quote, Jericho season, or will we see another doll baby switch? Or is this Dorothy learning the truth?
I think she's learning the truth,
that she was caring for a doll.
Now, and you had mentioned, you know, we were saying, well, you know, will the doll return? What capacity will the doll return? What does that mean for the Jericho baby? And you said, you know, I wonder if that's important at this point. And I think that's an interesting comment. And wanted to see if you might elaborate briefly on why you feel like maybe it isn't important.
His baby seems like a game. I know Leanne like loves these people now, and she like considers them family. but it just seems like, if they don't have the baby, everything kind of hits the fan, regardless of anything else that's happening. Like, they can't get past the loss, like the potential loss or the on and off loss of. So it seems like it's just kind of like bait to like either keep her engaged with them so she can have a family, or
the doll comes back.
right, or the doll comes back and breeds the chaos that the cult would need to get involved and get Ryan back, or whatever else they seem to be playing at. I don't think. I mean,
it's bait. It's a good.
It's important, but I don't think it's that important.
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, and mentioning the game, the next question that we sort of had that we were curious about, maybe getting answers, were about side characters, right? So, are these characters such as Roscoe, Natalie,
They showed them in the
Courtney,
trailer, I think. Yeah.
We know some of them will be returning this season. But also wondering, will there be ones that we don't see again, and will there be answers for that? Do you feel like we need answers on if people go missing, like Uncle George, for example? Do we need answers on that? Do we feel like the door's shut there?
It seems more significant. I can't imagine he wouldn't be back, even though I don't know. Dead is not necessarily dead, so that's hard to play with. It seems like they're alluding to him coming back, but other people I'm not so sure. Like Natalie, I don't see coming back necessarily.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Well, I know we see Roscoe for a moment. I hope that when he does reappear, we learn a little bit more about what he saw.
And like why he's different, or whatever it is that they did help him with.
Right. He spoke while under hypnosis. I'd like to know if that's made its way to his conscious.
Like if he remembers that?
Yeah. If you can elaborate, if he knows more about the cult, if he's come to give more information, they're coming and this is what you need to know.
Yeah.
Or be on alert for.
And also it makes me still want to know who Julian was talking about in the end of episode 9 of last season, when he said, he seemed okay.
Right. That's right.
Right. Yeah. Was he talking about the real Jericho, or was he talking about someone else? So yeah, again, I thought that just made me think about that. I would really love to know who Julian was seeing in his moment where he was dying. Or died. And then I think going into sort of the other big couple of questions, I feel like that kind of revolves around the house a bit, right? And the role that the house plays, as well as the role that the cult, how the cult and the house are related. So those were a couple of other things that we felt like we want some questions on. What are some of the things in that area that you're really excited to hopefully get some answers on?
We've seen that the house seems to be crumbling or falling apart. What's going on with that? How might the characters be tied to the house, if that makes sense? In good times, bad times, what's going on? We've still got that big hole in the basement. What's going on?
Is the house meant to be symbolic, right, of what's happening within the family or within the cult, or is it really it's a character in and of itself? I think is one of my big questions. And of course, we know that every season, because M. Night has said that each season will be exploring a new area of the house, a new room that we haven't seen before. Yep, last season was the attic. And what room would you want to see this season, or what do you think? Do you think that we will be getting another room or more places that we get to discover?
I feel like it's going to be more of the basement.
Yeah.
Not necessarily something new, just maybe more time with the strangeness down there. Based on some stuff in the trailer, and then the first episode was
connected to the basement. I'd like to learn more about that shed, because that's where we saw Sean in that kind of fugue state.
Mm.
in the season 2 finale, between when Dorothy knocked Aunt Josephine out with the shovel, and she went to go get Sean to help move the body or check on Liam. Sean was kind of standing, swaying by the shed. I want to know more.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. And if you've noted, if you've seen the new intro, we know that each season the intro changes, right? So we were looking at it, and we see in this one, we start from the perspective of inside the house at that, you know, in the kitchen, and we move out into their backyard, and we see the greenhouse, and then
the shed.
What looks like it's a shed, yeah. But as we'll see a little reveal as the door opens, and you'll see who's on the other side of that door. And it doesn't really look like they're inside. So I think that's an interesting little maybe reveal or foreshadowing as well as to what is coming this season. In the same way that the attic shot in the intro was foreshadowing last year.
Yep. To me, it looks like we're panning out from looking out of the kitchen onto that shed or greenhouse. It looks like it veers a little bit off to the side before the door opens. Maybe it veers from the shed to a side gate, maybe.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
But I would have to look at it about 10 more times.
Yes, which I'm sure we will.
Yeah, it's true.
And I guess, yeah, wrapping it up, tying the bow up on I think some of the bigger questions we have, or the things that we want to see, is sort of what's going on with the cult and the house itself. You know, we talked a lot last season about sort of it feeling like they're being watched, and we gave a lot of really cool examples where we saw that. And having watched the first episode, I can say that there are some more of those moments.
And they're going to install cameras.
Exactly. And now we're going to get their cameras. Exactly. So this will be interesting. Is this a war of who's watching who? But I was just doing a rewatch of both of the first 2 seasons, and there's so many indicators in my opinion, that the cult is already inside in some capacity.
I think that might be more of a mental thing.
Could be, yeah.
Because she keeps saying like you might not necessarily won't like notice if they're getting in. Like it can just seem so like normal. Like what if it's just like a mental
in your infiltrate? Yeah.
Maybe like a possession or like something of that nature. I don't know, because I don't know. There's not enough evidence.
Oh no, I love that, Ant. I think that's a really cool interpretation of that, and has a lot of promise. That's a really interesting point. I like that.
Remains to be seen how, but yeah, could.
Yeah, because there's got to be a strong psychological aspect to this, and yeah, I think that you're right that it may not always be a literal thing.
And that's like the only thing that's not really talked about. Like nobody ever is, unless like, I mean, they did hypnotize Roscoe, but like other than that, everyone else seems to kind of just be happening, which is normal, but also maybe not.
Right. Yeah. The noises that they hear,
things like
running
that.
faucets, stuff like that. Yeah.
Having moments of like being zoned out or like whatever that is.
Right. Exactly. Trance-like states. Yeah, definitely. And so yeah, we were excited to get talking about it and start peeling back the layers again. So it has. So
go into the season, into the first episode of the new season proper, and go over everything we pick up on.
Yes. So I'm sure we'll be doing more discussion on that. We'll put up a recap and a review soon. And today, as we leave you, or tonight, whatever it is, as you're listening to this, our sort of random final question that we want to put out there is that we know that the first episode of the season, the name is Donkey. And we thought that was really interesting because in the past seasons, we felt like it's been pretty evident what the title corresponds to through the episode. And this feels kind of out of nowhere. I don't recall seeing a donkey in the episode.
Yeah, he doesn't really cook anything that seems to be like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, right? So we would love your thoughts on what donkey could mean in terms of it being the title of this episode.
I'd love a theory.
Yes.
Because I got nothing.
Me either. We're usually full of them, but this one,
yeah, it's too soon to tell, I suppose.
Yeah. So yeah, if you guys have any thoughts or ideas on what donkey might mean as the title, or anything else that we talked about, or your own questions that are burning for answers, put them in the comments. We would love to keep the conversation going.
All right. Bye.
All right, guys. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Anne. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.
Yes. And we're excited to get going. So we'll see you guys really soon. And we'll be talking about episode 1 of season 3.
For sure.
All right. This is Servant Decoded, and we'll talk to you and see you soon.